Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today on the Succah Daf Chav Gimel, we are going to begin on Chav Beis Amud Beis by the Mishnah. Host the Sukkah B'rosh Hargolah. If a person puts their sukkah and makes it on the top of a wagon, or B'rosh Hasfina Kshera, he puts on a boat, it's kosher, but only B'Yom Tov. And a person is allowed to even go there on Yom Tov. It's not a problem. And the reason why one would think it's not allowed is because this is according to the opinion that a sukkah is a diras arai. Rashi is the diras arai sagiba. It's an interesting language that it's sufficient. A person's allowed to go there on Yom Tov, and even though that doesn't seem to be much of a chiddush, but it's based on the next line. V'rosh iyu an oel gabi gamal ksher ve'eno Yom Tov. You can build a sukkah on the top of a tree, like a tree house, or a camel. So that's a good sukkah, but you can't go on there Yom Tov. You can only use it on Chol HaMoed. Now the Mishnah says the following: Shtayim be'ilan v'achas be'iyada. Let's say two are based on the tree, and one is a person. In other words, it's not the tree itself, but rather it's some other wall. Oh, shtayim be'iyada v'achas be'ilan kshera min onla b'Yom Tov. The fact that you're using part of the tree for the materials for your sukkah, it becomes problematic that we don't want you to use it on Yom Tov. However, shalosh b'di'adim v'achas b'ilon ksher v'onla b'Yom Tov, as we know, because three alone is sufficient, and therefore you don't even need that fourth one, which is for the Elon, and therefore you can go up on Yom Tov. As we continue to Chav Gimel Amud Aleph. Zeklal, this is the general rule. Kol she'intal Elon. If you take away the tree, it's still able to stand by itself. It's kosher, and you can go up on Yom Tov, which is our circumstance because, as we said, you could have a sukkah which has three walls. You don't need a fourth wall. So now the Gemara asks the question: Mani Masnis, who is our Mishnah like? So Rabbi Kiva, the Sanya Oisa Sukkos B'rosh Hasfina. So there's actually a machlokus. If a person makes a sukkah on the top of a boat, Rabbi Gamliel Poisel, Rabbi Kiva Machshir. So our Mishnah that says you're allowed to do it, obviously, has to be in accordance with Rabbi Kiva, not like Rabbi Gamliel. Maaseh Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Kiva Shahaya Boyim B'Sfina. Many times throughout Shas we find Rabbi Gamliel on a boat. Amad Rabbi Kiva also Sukkah B'rosh Hasfina. It was obviously sukkahs. Rabbi Kiva Shitaso built the sukkah on the boat, and Rabbi Gamliel didn't. Lamacha the next day, Nosh v'ruach v'krasa. A wind came and basically ripped the whole sukkah off. So Omer lo Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Gamliel said, Akiva, hechen sukkascha. He wasn't doing it to be mean or cruel, but he was asking, where's your sukkah? So to say, clearly that should be a raya that a sukkah should not be on a boat. It's not the place to have a sukkah. So let's understand this machlokas a little bit better. Rabbi, the Kol Yalma, everyone agrees. If the sukkah is so flimsy that it cannot even withstand the normal wind on the dry land, in which it's usually much windier on water than on dry land, especially when you have dry land in which there's hills which can break the wind. So that's definitely not a sukkah. If this is a circumstance where a sukkah is able to be so strong that it can withstand even winds that are not so normal, much more powerful on the dry land, it's definitely kosher sukkah. He pligi, and this is we have to be careful of the gearses over here. It is able to withstand just a regular wind on dry land. Diyam or Ruach Sheni Matsui Diabasha. Rabbi Gamliel Savar Sukkah Kevabina, as we saw already on Dav Zion. He, as well as many other rabbis, have the opinion that it has to be permanent. This is why the girsa makes more sense on the side, because that's the Gemara continues saying that language, that since this sukkah is not able to withstand a normal wind in the water, so therefore lukumhi, it's nothing. People say no, sukkah diras arai, be'inon, kivan yichalam rebuch matzidi abashak sheira. The fact that it's able to stand on Ruach Matsuya in the dry land, even though it may be on a boat in which it may not necessarily be able to stand so well, that's okay. It'd still be kosher. Okay. And then we go now to the next case. O al gabi gamal. Person builds a sukkah on a camel, not a problem, but you're not allowed to ascend it on Yom Tov because of the gzera, just like climbing up a tree, shema yitloish, that you may break up a branch. So mastis the money, who's the Mishnah like over here? So Rameir the sign sukkah so gabi behema, a person makes a sukkah on the top of an animal. So Rameir machshir. So it's clear, it's like Rameir. Rabbi Yehuda poison. So my time to Rabbi Yehuda. Why does Rabbi Yehuda say it's a problem? What's the issue of having a sukkah on a camel? It still has all the dimensions, has more shade than sun. So Omer Kral, the pasuk says, Chag sukkah tasel shiva jam. The sukkah is supposed to be for 7 days, which means it has to be a sukkah haruyah shiva shmo sukkah. Only a sukkah that's fit, that you can actually physically go in there for all 7 days. However, sukkah she'ena haruyah shiva lo shmei sukkah. However, because you can't go up on Yom Tov, so therefore this is not considered to be a fit for 7 days. Meir, it's a great question. This sukkah you cannot go for 7 days. The pasuk says shir shamim. Midaraisa, you really could go there all 7 days. It was just a gzera de rabbanan that you can't go up on top of a camel or climb a tree. However, midaraisa, that's a good sukkah, and therefore it's not a problem with the pasuk. Now you're right. Practically, we don't go in such a sukkah for 7 days because ain't no Yom Tov. But nonetheless, it's not considered to be a violation of the pasuk to passel the sukkah. Now we have a very fascinating Gemara. Also, l'behema doifin l'sukkah. Let's say that you end up using, not that you put the sukkah on top of the animal, but you actually use the sukkah and its wall. One of its walls is an animal. So you actually are relying on that animal to stay there in order for it to remain a sukkah ksher. So Rameir pois or Rabbi Machshir. So Rameir, interestingly enough, who we just quoted before, that you could put the sukkah on top of the animal, here Rameir says you cannot use a sukkah, cannot be made where one of the walls is an animal. So Rabbi Machshir. So Rameir Oimer, why do you say it's a problem? He says, Kol davar sheish bo ruach chayim, anything which has in it breathing life. Ein oisin lo doifin l'sukkah. It cannot be a wall for a sukkah. V'lo lechi l'mavoi, which we said that you have a mavoi, sosum, closed on 3 sides. So the 4th side has to have a kaira, a horizontal beam, or a lechi, a vertical beam. So you can't have an animal sit there as one of your lechis. V'lo pasin l'be'irois. It cannot be the pasin which we saw also on Zayin Medes, in which we discussed really mostly in the second paragraph of Succah Erevin, that we have these L-shaped gam-like boards, which are an amma by an amma, or 6 by 6 tfachim, and in there, in the center, is water for the Oli Ragalim to be able to go and to drink, or for their animals. So you cannot use an animal to be serve as one of these boards as a wall. And also it cannot be a goylel, a covering for a kever, which is for a grave. Says Rashi, if you made a casket for a dead body, ein sham goylel olav otame. The goylel, which is the covering, is matama maga, masa, touching it, the masa if it's lifted up, and oil. Because according to the Gemara in Masechtas Chulin, al pnei hasad el rabbis goyel v'doifik. So we went out from Goel V'Doivik that these things also are matam. So we're saying that this is actually a kula, that it will not become tam. And Mishum Rabbi Yosef Galili Amru, Av in Kaisel of Giti Nashim, which we'll talk more about that. This Gemara is discussed obviously in Masechtas Gittin, almost verbatim as we'll see shortly. You can't actually use an animal for and write a get with it. Assuming, of course, it's a living animal, not the hide of an animal. So my time to Rameir. So what is the reason that Rameir says that all these things are problematic? That you can't use an animal as a wall or a sukkah? So we have a couple answers. Practically, what if the animal dies and that's it, and you're going to be stuck without a sukkah? What if the animal runs away? It moves. It's not going to stay in one place. So these are two practical issues. Now the Gemara says like this: Bapil kosher kolyamul pligi. If we're dealing with an elephant, which is tied up, no one's going to argue. Why? The inami mayis yesh b'nevelasa yud. That even if, let's say, as a carcass it dies, it's still going to be 10 tefachim high because it's such a big body. And while it's alive, we're not afraid it's going to run away because you tied it up. Ki pligi b'pil shenu kosher. The machlokus is an elephant that's not tied up. The one who says that it may die, so on this he's not chayish. The one who says that it may run away is chayish because it's not tied up. Where it says, I don't understand that. The one who says that maybe it's going to die, is he also not concerned it may run away? It could still run away. So why would he say that's okay? Ella, we have to amend what we just said a little bit. But peel shenu kosher kolim lo pligi. If an elephant that's not tied up, everyone agrees it's possible. It's not a good sukkah because shema tivrach. It will run away if it's not tied. Ki pligi b'behemoth shura. Again, if it's an elephant tied up, there's nothing to talk about. But if it's a behemoth, smaller animal, while it's tied up, that's when the machlokas. The one who says that maybe it'll die, or chayesh, because if it dies, its nevel will be less than the requisite 10 tefachim high of a wall. We're not afraid of it running away because it's tied up. So why isn't he also concerned maybe it'll die? So as we've heard this expression in many places, the fact that someone's going to die is not something, or an animal's going to die, is not something which is shchiach. And you can see on the side is Yumad Yud Gimel and Aleph, the discussion if the Kohen Gadol should have a wife, should he have a second wife in case the first wife dies. So we say Mislo Shticha. How does this acceptable wall that there's space between the legs? So that airspace is clearly more than lavut. So the Ovid Leib Hutzvadafna, you stick a bunch of bamboo shoots there to be able to fill up that space. Vidilma Rub. So we have a different question. What if it lies down? Okay, it's not going to run away, but what if it lies down? So your answer is the Mesicha Ba'ashli Mul'el. They actually tie it up with ropes from above. In other words, you put it underneath the animal, and the rope is like this, holding up the animal, so it will not be able to lie down. So 1 second. If the whole concern is that the animal is going to die, so let's say it dies, so it's still tied up, so it's not going to fall down. Well, the truth is, based on dead weight, maybe it's less than 3 tefachim away. As we continue now on Chav Gimel Mabez, and the Kivan Demaisa, once it dies, then Kavtza V'Lavadaita, it's going to go down, it's going to sink down, even though it's tied up. But an animal holds its own weight. But then when you have dead weight, it's going to press down, and there's going to be a larger amount of space. Fine. Let's quickly see question 8, 9. Question 8. B'ma pligi Rameir Rabbi Yehuda the Hechsher Sukkah al Gabe Behema. What exactly is this machlokas? So we said it's based on the interpretation of Chag Sukkah's Shiva Yomim. So it has to be for 7 days, and if it's not 7 days, then it's not a sukkah that you can use. So you can't go up on top of this animal. Rameir says no. Midaraisa, you could go up. It's just a din derabanan. So therefore, it's not a violation. Question 9. Mehim dalad hamim shenamru b'gemara b'shitas Rameir hapais behemul adayfen sukkah. What were the reasons why a person should not use the wall as a wall, an animal? So one is, as we said, Shema Tibrach, it may run away. Shema Tomus, it may die. And then we're going to see a couple other answers, which I'll just read them now. Mechitza Shoimedes Beruach in a Mechitza. A Mechitza that literally stands with wind is not a wall. Mechitza Sheino Asui B'nei Adam in a Mechitza. Mechitza wasn't made by man, is not a Mechitza. Again, we'll see that a little bit more, exactly what that means. Actually on tomorrow's daf. Okay, so we'll have to review that again. So for the Gemara, is it true that Abai is of the opinion that Rameir is concerned that the animal may die? And Rabbi Yehuda said is not chayish, but not. Bas Yisrael. It's brought down in Gemara Gittin. We have a daughter of a Yisrael. She married a Kohen. Then Behold Bala Medina Siyam. Her husband, who's a Kohen, went overseas. He went abroad. So the question is, he may be dead. Now, if he dies, she's not allowed to eat truma anymore, because her father is a non-Kohen. But we still say we assume that he's alive. Just because he went to Medina Siyam, that doesn't mean the second you go on an airplane that you're going to die. So we don't have that assumption. We say mislo shchicha, she can still eat truma. Ramin and Allah, we ask the question: a person says, I'm going to give you this get one moment before I die. So we say that she's not allowed to eat truma right away. The question is, why? Must be because we're afraid he may die right now. If he dies, so then it would have been a get retroactively an hour before, and she wasn't allowed to eat truma. So are we concerned in Misa or not? So the Amar Abai, and on this Abai says, Lo kasha, ha-rameir, the lo chayish Misa, ha-Rabbi Yehuda the chayish Misa. This is Rameir, who's not concerned of Misa. Rabbi Yehuda is chayish Misa. How does he see the Rabbi Yehuda is chayish Misa? The Sanya. Halokefian ben akusim, this Gemara is mentioned in so many places. So a person who buys wine from a kuti, and because of that, there's a question as to whether Trumas and Maasros are separated. So in that circumstance, Rashi says, before there was a gezerah against doing that, Gemara in Chulin says that we have a concern about the kutim. Okay, so before the gezerah, you bought wine. Omer, a person can say, Shnei lugin shani asal hafresh. 2 lugin, which I'm going to in the future separate, harihin trumas, harihin truma. So that's the 2%. Asara, 10% is Meiser Rishon. Every year of the 7-year cycle, years 1 through 6, I should say, you have to give 10% to the Levi. Tisha Meiser Sheni, 9, because that's really 10%, but it's because you had 100, you gave 2, so even though it's really not exactly 10, but let's say you gave up 10, there's 90 left, there's only 88 left, there's 90 left, let's say. So now 10% of 90 is 9. Meiser Sheni, this is of course in years 1, 2, 4, and 5, where you bring these fruits to your shalayim. Umeichel, Miyad Rameir clearly holds, he's not concerned of anything happening, anything to be worried about. And therefore he says, okay, you could do this, you can make this condition, and Rashi says, Kegoin Shegil Leili Shabbos. It's right before Shabbos. O Eini Mokelim Tahirin Lahafresh L'Seichen Truma Meiser. You don't have any ability to separate this properly, so you can make this condition, which is really a form of breira, that you're able to say, I'm doing this now, and it will work. As we continue to Chavdal Amud Aleph, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Shimon, Oisran. The question is Rabbi Yehuda really part of this kat? Is it a 2 and 2, or is it a 1 and 3 split? But according to our reading here, Rabbi Yehuda says, no, it's a problem. So we see, l'chayra, that Rabbi Yehuda is chayash l'misa, and Rav Meir is not chayash l'misa. Okay? So, again, that's Omar Baya, Lukash, Ha Rav Meir, the Lukash l'misa, Rabbi Yehuda, the chayash l'misa. So this is a proof that really that's how it should be. So how could it be if over here Rabbi Yehuda says it's usher, because he's obviously concerned of this whole situation. So then how come we said before that Rabbi Yehuda is chayash l'misa? So Ipoch, Rav Meir chayash l'misa, Rabbi Yehuda lo chayash l'misa. You're right, just flip it around, flip the shitas around. There's Sanya. Also behema doif l'sukkah, Rav Meir points Rabbi Yehuda machsher. So therefore, that's how we're going to be able to explain this. Okay. If I continue, I'll be going another 10 lines. So I'm going to stop there. Then we'll pick up tomorrow from where we left off. Fine. Let's look at TA3. Host a sukkah gabi behema. First, he made a sukkah on the top of an animal. So ha'im hikshera umadu. So is that kosher? Everyone holds it's kosher. Well, you can't go up on Yom Tov. Rabbi Yehuda apostles it because it's not ruling for 7. Rameir's makshim need the right that it is chazi. Okay. Fine. TB5. Well, at the time of the Rameir, Dina is mechitza, the bali chaim yishum shemativrach. We're concerned maybe the animal was going to run away. So be'eza oifen maksh Rameir mechitza b'hema l'shitasa. So how could he possibly allow it if the issue is shemativrach? So the answer is, if it's an animal that's tied up, so if it's tied up, you're not afraid it's going to run away. And it's chutzvah dafna, you put these branches underneath, and you tie a rope directly underneath it, so it'll hold up, so that it will not be able to run away or lie down. Adka.